Yo, what is up everybody? Jumpin here, and I am on some Diablo 4 with the new season, and I want to show off my Incinerate leveling build that I used to get to level 100. It only took me like a day and a half to get to 100. It was actually kind of crazy, and they have definitely improved the leveling where it's way quicker now. But Incinerate actually surprised me this season. Now, the only reason I even started using it was because I was getting legendary aspects to drop for Incinerate. And I was like, alright, I guess I'll try it. And I was actually really surprised by how good this actually is. Now, I'm a huge fan of firewall leveling with the Sorcerer. It's actually one of my favorite ways to level. I always have a lot of fun with it. I just like being a fire mage. But for the actual in-game, I will use Firewall to help me level up really quickly, and then I'll transition into a different build, whatever might be the meta, or whatever I just want to make for that season. And when Incinerate, I don't really trust it for the end game, mainly because, well, it is a channel, and my biggest gripe about this move forever will be that you have to stand still to do it. And the longer you can actually hover over a target and hit them, the more damage you're going to do. Now, you can absolutely delete stuff, and while you level, this is not really a problem, because the Sorcerer is extremely tanky for leveling. But once you get to the end game, well, things kind of change in terms of dying. So, typically, it's not a good idea to stand still, ever. You want to just be moving around, and that's my biggest problem with Incinerate for the end game. But for leveling, this build was a blast. This new aspect is incredible. It turns your Incinerate into a shotgun. And the thing about this is that each of the beams will have their own separate damage, so you really want to use it at point blank. And again, that can definitely be a problem once the enemies are going to do a lot of damage, because you really got to get it in their face. Another thing about Incinerate is that you actually will set them on fire when you are standing close to them. And with the aspects and everything, you're going to be doing a lot of dot damage with this. Things just die very quickly, and it's actually kind of shocking. Now, there's another aspect. It's pretty incredible for this, but what it does is that whenever you hit an enemy, they're going to explode and do kind of a small AoE, but it can hit everything, especially if you pull them together. And when it does that, it will trigger multiple times because it's per enemy. So if you got like 20 guys, it's crazy, and your dot damage will just be insane. And I have done some in-game activities, even though I am saying that I think that the in-game might have some problems. I don't know exactly. I do think this build will be decent. If you're looking for a fire build for this season for in-game, I think Incinerate might be pretty decent to actually try out for that as well. But for leveling, it is just crazy fast on how you can just blast through everything using a flamethrower. Alrighty guys, well now I'm going to go over the build and tell you everything you're going to want to know. Alrighty guys, well I'm going to start with the aspects, and the first one that you're going to want to find is the flamethrower's aspect. This is the new one, and what it does is that it will split Incinerate into 3 beams. And it's going to do less damage than normal, but only by a slight amount. And when you put this on a two-hander, you're going to do 70% more damage than normal. And that is per beam. So if you use it like a shotgun, and you hit an enemy with all 3 beams, you're actually doing 210% more damage, which is kind of wild. Now when it comes to your offensive things you're looking for, intelligence, damage, damage over time, fire damage over time, fire damage. Critical damage is a very good stat for this build because that is a multiplicative damage. The tempering, you really want to get, if possible, either the pyromancy attack speed, that's okay, the fire damage, or the fire damage over time. The other stat, which would be perfect, is the radius for Incinerate. Unfortunately, I'm not the biggest fan of this tempering system. The 5 tries and then you're done, I don't like that. I'm not exactly sure if you can reset it or not, but if you can't reset that, there's going to be so many pieces of gear that is really good. This is a really good stat, and it got ruined with that chance for Fireball. I do not want that. Now, the biggest problem with a staff is your cooldown. We are on a sorcerer. Once you get to world tier 4, you need your defensive cooldowns. That's just the reality of it. And when you have a staff, you just will not get them back nearly as quick. Well, they did come out with something new that is pretty incredible. That is the Yen's Blessing. You can go and get these right away if you farm Lord Zur. And what they do is that when you cast a skill, you have up to a 60% chance to cast a non-mobility, non-ultimate skill for free that is on cooldown. It can only happen once every 8 seconds. That's actually wild and crazy, mainly because the 3 things that we're going to get for free all the time is Flame Shield, Ice Armor, and Ice Blade. Now, Ice Blade, I really like it because it helps with the cooldowns, and the more Ice Blades, the better. So getting that for free is really nice, but mainly getting Flame Shield and Ice Armor for free is incredible to help us stay alive, and it does help with the cooldown situation. We get damage reduction close from these, we get vulnerable damage, movement speed. These are pretty good. And I definitely can see myself using these on my mage for this season. For the ring, Talrasha, this is a no-brainer. Go and get this right away, and it's going to improve your build. My other ring, I have the barrier damage on there. I have tried many different aspects for more damage, and I always settle on the barrier. Just because you always have your barrier up, you're always getting this bonus, it makes the most sense. I actually have ultimate cooldown with the tempering on this. That's pretty nice. I definitely like that. Again, pyromancy attack. I would have preferred to get maybe fire damage over time, but the tempering system, the moment I get something that I can use, I'm just sticking with it. The critical damage on this, very nice. Now, this is the other Incinerate aspect, and putting it on the necklace is probably a good choice. But I remember this being hot garbage before, because it used to only do the deal where when you channel, you do increased burning damage. Pretty cool. The second effect is the new part of it. And what it does is that when you hit an enemy, you will do a fire explosion on them, and it's going to burn them over 6 seconds. And it can only happen once every 3 seconds. Now, what's crazy about it is that it is per enemy. So if they're all pulled together and there's 50 dudes, you will hit them, they all blow up, they all do the fire damage, and if they're in the AoE, the dot damage you get is crazy. I've gotten 7 million dot damage, and I'm like, wow, I have never gotten that high before with a firewall build. Now, I never really take my firewall builds to the super end game, but as I'm leveling to get in the multi-millions with my dots, that is like mind-blowing to me. And I haven't really used Firewall this season, so I'm not exactly sure if Firewall is just like way better for the dot damage than Incinerate. You guys can tell me, but I gotta say, I've been impressed with Incinerate, and it was fun and a different change of pace. This necklace is hot garbage. I should have actually got a new one, but I knew I was going to change the build eventually. My helmet here, I am using the Ice Armor Unstoppable. 5 seconds, really nice, but having Unstoppable is important when I'm channeling because I don't want to get interrupted. And this with Flame Shield, if I do get interrupted or stunned, I can teleport. You have a decent amount of Unstoppable on this. The raiment, this is a no-brainer. We pull enemies together, we stun them, and we get a lot of offensive stuff. It's incredible. On my gloves, these are actually pretty decent gloves. I got the crit damage, I got the intelligence, but the aspect is the aspect of engulfing flames. Now this seems a little win more to me, I'm not going to lie, but this is how we get some of these really big multi-million numbers. That is the reality of this. The moment that they go below 50% health, we will do so much more damage to them. It's crazy. And it's very easy to actually do the secondary effect because of the amount of damage that we do. And it just means they die way faster. And that's nice. I like it. And then finally, on my pants, I have Disobedience. You could use Juggernaut. You could put Juggernaut on and call it a day. You only need like 9,000 armor or something like that for this season. So Juggernaut is pretty cool. But I don't really like not being able to dodge, so I think that disobedience, at least for this, it felt better to me. One thing I didn't mention about the tempering is that you can temper on your defensive stuff warmth. Now, warmth is for fire. It's going to give us some healing. It's pretty nice. I like it a lot. I also like what they did with rubies in the armor because you can have up to 9% max life. Now, of course, getting the sockets for all my stuff is really difficult at the beginning of the season for some reason, but hopefully they will fix that. Now, for the skill points, you want to put your 2 points into Firebolt and call it a day. For Incinerate, I like to go for the Destructive Incinerate. Enemies deal less damage while they're burning. That's pretty good. Now, another thing about Incinerate, while you channel, you do get 15% DR. That's kind of cool. But it doesn't matter if you're standing still and you get hit by things that are just going to one-shot you. That is the problem. One thing I wanted to mention is the really low lucky hit chance of this move. It's only 9%. And one thing I like about this, it's so bad that I definitely don't want to even try to make it work. So I don't have to put anything into lucky hit chance. And you might think, well, wouldn't the firewall enchantment be really good with this? To get that extra burning, and you would just be proccing this like crazy. Well, the problem is that lucky hit chance is so low that I just don't think it's worth it at all. So instead, the enchantments I use Frozen Orb and I use Ice Blade. The Ice Blade enchantment is so good. I just love it. Give me all these cooldowns, please. The Frozen Orb build, which I'm going to try to transition to, should be pretty awesome for just giving me a whole bunch of Ice Blades, so I'm excited about that. But the Ice Blade enchantment is really nice, but this is a good way of getting vulnerable. I gotta be honest, the Fire Mage does not have a good way of getting vulnerable, outside of, unfortunately, relying on Frost Nova. So that being the case, I think that this is a good option if you're looking for ways of putting vulnerable on enemies. Definitely go and get Elemental Dominance, it's a multiplier, it's 12%. Now, I do like this for that stun. The healing is also really good for Flame Shield, but the stun, I kind of like it for the bosses, just to get that extra CC on the boss. And I am noticing that in the pit, that I do think that having more CC is going to be nice for the pit. Teleport, obviously go for the DR, no brainer. Glass Cannon, really nice. I always grab this, just 1 point though. If it procs, it procs. I get a free cooldown, why not? Ice Armor, they actually did change this, and I really like this one. Whenever you're using mana, you're knocking off cooldown. Now with those boots, I don't know. I just feel like I always have my Ice Armor active, and I love that. Ice Blade, cooldown, cooldown, cooldown. And I do think it's not a bad idea now to put 3 points into Align the Elements. The reason for this is because they changed it. The bonus will persist for 2 seconds after you take damage. That's actually incredible. Now, this is elite damage reduction, but elites are the most dangerous enemies, so this really helps a lot. I'm all about trying to be tanky, so I think that having as much DR is nice. And Mage does get a lot of DR. Compared to other classes, the Mage gets a ton, because one of those ways is this, Mana Shield, 24%. That's crazy. And of course, you definitely have to get protection just for those barriers. They are incredible. You don't have to go for this Conjuration Mastery, especially if you're not getting a ton of Ice Blades. Once you get the boots, this becomes a lot better because you're going to get more Ice Blades. But if you don't want to go for this, you can actually just go ahead and do like this if you need the points in the warmth for the healing, or if you're having any types of mana issues at all. If you max this out, you will not have mana issues anymore. So just keep that in mind. For the passive over here, Inner Flames, it's the only one that we can really benefit from because we can't crit when Incinerate. It's purely just a dot damage. I do love Inferno. I just love this. I think it's a lot of fun. It pulls. It has a pretty low cooldown. But also, it will help us get our mana back if we need it. We activate this, we regen all our mana, basically. And like I said, this is a good one. But these over here, these are damage perks. They changed this one, and I do like this one. You have to stand still, but I am always standing still channeling. Warmth is not the best healing. It's just not. But it's better than nothing, and that's the thing. You have nothing, so get some warmth. It does help. And then finally, combustion. Very nice. The whole extra sources of burning. Okay. I don't know. That's the deal. I really will never understand how exactly that works. But it just seems like it does up your damage by a lot. If I remove this and take it off, I will notice a damage drop. Now, this does give me 20x, so that could be what I'm noticing. But I don't know. Now, for the Paragon, I'm going to mainly just show it to you, and you can copy my board if you like. But here's the deal. I have not changed this or tried to, readjust it to min-max it. This is what I went for as I leveled. So keep that in mind. That's kind of the beauty of this. As I leveled, I didn't bother with some of this stuff until later on when I had the extra points. But from my first glyph, I have territorial in here. Damage to close. Definitely want the DR close, there's no doubt. DR is a problem this season. There is a lack of it, and that is very noticeable. Now, what I did here was I went for the legendary node right away. So I wanted Burning Instinct immediately because this is super good. Mainly because if you get any crit strike damage on your build, you're getting a huge multiplier, 105x. That is awesome. And on top of it, having more intelligence, you get more bonus as well. Now, I did go ahead and get the glyph spot, of course. I put Reinforced in here. I'm looking for that extra DR. And obviously, we are setting everything on fire. So, most of the time when we're getting hit, we should be getting this DR from burning. And over here, we can get a little bit of armor, some extra DR from elites. Maybe you could skip out on that. I'm not exactly sure. Now, what's the beauty of this setup and the Fire Mage in general, in my opinion, is that the Paragon board is always very easy to do. Because I could just put a ton of points into this, and then once I go up here, I'm going for the other fire board. So this is Searing Heat. Now, with this gives us direct damage multiplier. Not exactly sure if this is working with Incinerate, but I assume it does. But I could be wrong. We can get a ton of extra fire damage on this board, and some fire damage over time. And a little crit damage too. So this board is definitely nice. And again, if you want to invest a ton of points as you level in these two boards, you can just do that. And then eventually you want to go into another board mainly just to get a glyph spot. Now this over here is Enchantment Master, and I don't go for that. But the reason I go into the board is because again, it has a ton of non-physical damage. And I love that. And yeah, it's just a great board. It's just a fantastic board. Even the resistance is really nice. Having that general resistance is much better than anything. And yeah, you definitely want to use Destruction. And you want to try to level this up by doing Nightmares as quick as you can. Because this is going to give you a ton of damage. And you can actually slip that into other spots to get way more dex. But I choose not to. In fact, this is the spot right here. As you're leveling, and the moment you get it to 15 Destruction, you could put it here and get a ton of dex points. It's all over the place. But that's up to you. And then later on, if you want to level up Reinforced and put this in, I didn't really talk about it, but Reinforced, it gives you that 15% damage reduction while you have a barrier. And with a Sorcerer, that's basically like general damage reduction. And that's kind of nice. And then finally, what I did, and again, this is not meant to be a min-max board. This is just what I did as I leveled up, and I winged it. I totally winged this entire thing. But I decided to go over here, which this is one of the ice trees. Now, why did I do this? Because I am actually chilling the enemies all the time. I could actually even get some of this DR over here if I needed it. I don't really think I need that. But the Frozen Orb and the Ice Blade enchantment, and just using Ice Blade, I am absolutely chilling enemies and benefiting from some of this. But also, I can go ahead and get some extra willpower over here, and this will give me some extra fire damage over time. To be honest, I could have probably maybe used a different glyph. Flame Feeder might be better. But I don't know. I just decided to level that up. But that's pretty much it. That is the board as I leveled up. Mainly, I definitely wanted to get Burning Instinct as quick as possible so that I could get a ton of damage. Alrighty guys, well that's going to pretty much do it for this video. I really hope that you have enjoyed it and that it has helped. If it has, will you please like the video for me? And be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope that everyone has a very nice day. And peace out.